Okay, so as I said, welcome. We're so glad to have you here. First question, what is vote411.org? Well, it's nothing more than an online voter guide. By nothing more than an online voter guide, I mean a source that includes all information on voting. Much of the general information listed on the right-hand side of this slide, and that those bullet points, is entered in by the National League. We, as the State League, can include candidate form dates, locations of other information by supplying it to the U.S. League. All that information can be on this website. As the public, what you see when you log into vote411.org is this page. And the page doesn't really fit onto the slide. So these pages that I'm going to be showing you, bear with me. But what you will do is you will put your address in this area here that's asking for your address. And then you'll click on the submit button down in the lower right-hand corner. And then you'll get a page that looks like this. When I was getting these slides for this presentation, Wisconsin was having an election. So this information is from Wisconsin. We didn't have anything on Idaho at the time. So when you can see there's some information on here about the election and so on. But on the left-hand side, you see that Explore Now button. And if you click on that Explore Now button, it will take you to a page before this one that shows your races. You see up on the top, it says View My Races. It would show you all your races. You pick the race you want to see. And this is the Superintendent of Public Instruction race. It was a primary, so there was a lot of candidates. When you look at the candidates, you can select two of those to compare, and you'll get a page like this. It has two of the candidates. It has some information about them. And then on the bottom, you see there's a question. Well, if you could scroll down on this page, you would see their answers to that question. And then there'll be another question and the answers to that question and another question and the answers to that question and so on. And then because there's so many candidates, you can click on one of the other ones and you can compare the other ones too. So this is what the public sees. In Idaho, if you right now would go to Vote411 and put in your address, you would get this. It would tell you about the elections. You know, we've got an election in May that will have, well, in our case here in Latah County, we've got highway district, but there's it shows you the elections, and I don't know, we kind of missed that one. We could have had that on Vote411. That would have been kind of, we could have all sat here and put it together. I better stay on script, right? So the funding of Vote411. We've been using the Idaho Gives donations for our funding for the Vote411. In 2018, the State League paid for the U.S. congressional and statewide races. And that was our first year on Vote411. And Eleanor pretty much handled that one by herself. No, Eleanor totally handled that one by herself. And so we had the Congress and state races, and I think that was like a $500 bill for that. I don't, if I remember correctly. And then in 2020, the State League paid $2,500, which included the U.S. congressional districts and all the legislative districts. And then we also, after we got done with that, boy, we must have thought we were on a roll, because then we included all the county races. And so they were all invited. Everybody was invited to participate in all of those races, congressional districts, the legislative districts, and the county races. The like president, that was all done by the U.S. League, and it was available when you would put in your address, you would see that as one of the races. Excuse me. In the 2021 elections, these will be the city council and in some cities mayor elections. And the price for that is $200 per community, except for Moscow, which is $400. They base their prices depending upon the membership in the league, because they consider that the basis of the league's capacity to raise funds. So larger leagues, they charge more. Excuse me. So advertising. In 2018, we offered all the leagues $200 for advertising, and the League of Women Voters of Moscow and the Idaho Falls Mals took advantage of the offer and had some newspaper, some online newspaper advertising, and Moscow had advertising in both the Moscow and Lewiston papers. Since those two papers are owned by the same person, you put it in one, it goes in both for like nothing, hardly extra. And in 2020, the advertising was done through letters to the editor and word of mouth. And I have to tell you, that was a real popular election. And I was interviewed by so many radios and TV and all different venues. And the first thing I talked about was vote 411. So I was getting the word out as much as I could. And now I'll turn it over to Jean.
Okay, thanks, Sue. Most of you wouldn't know me because I was just a week into being a member of the league when I was roped into participating in Vote 411 by the magic and amazing Crystal Callahan, who is an amazing roper. So I must say that Nancy Cheney is my favorite mayor ever. I spent 20 years in Moscow and she is my mayor. It's nice to see you. So voter education, why do we participate in Vote 411? Well, that's obvious. Our league's mission is to inform voters with the information they need to make decisions that align with their values. To that end, the League of Women Voters of the U.S. created Vote 411 for every league, everywhere, to use and populate with candidate information directly from the candidates. We participate in 411 to amplify our efforts, both locally and nationally. The League of Women Voters US has created a very sophisticated tool that's actually very easy to use. It's informative, as Sue has spelled out, and specialized down to each address. That was fun, to plug in my own address and to see all of the candidates from my area before the election. This platform allows people to access it from where they are, on their phone, on their computer, and because the press is an important partner, all newspapers can print the voter guides for free. Some, like the Idaho Statesman and the Idaho Press, go one step further and pay for some of the fees to use the platform and augment their smaller staffs with our work. It's a win-win when we've got such small newspaper staffs and we have so much information to provide. We craft the questions based on the issues important to our communities. The candidates answer directly into the platform. We don't edit them, we don't guide them. They are in full control of the text. The great thing about the name recognition, the League of Women Voters has put considerable resources in 411, and we can join this national campaign. Partnering with newspapers also allows us to put our name on every time the guide is put in the paper. It also allows us to make one-on-one contact with elected officials, so our name is at the top of their minds. That was my favorite part, getting to know the local county folks. We built this recognition with candidate forums or lunchtime talks, and this platform reaches as deep as we want it to. Having this setup also allows the league to prove we only seek to inform voters and listen to candidates. We are the right people doing the right thing at the right time with our support of the Vote 411. This platform and process invites elected officials to recognize the league as having transparent goals and processes, and where they will not be subject to any gotcha traps, nor can they gain an endorsement from us. The ballots are personalized. Each user enters their address. It's a huge clearinghouse for informing voters of their choice. It's all guided by GPS. So when a district changes, we update that mapping. And it's sophisticated. Obviously, this cutting edge technology behind the scenes is all built and maintained for us. When I first saw the interface and was working with Eleanor and Crystal and Sue and the rest of the folks on this, I was fairly intimidated, even though I consider myself fairly technologically savvy. But boy, after a while, it was like falling off a log because I had my godmothers, Eleanor, Crystal, and Sue. We're only charged as volunteers. We're only charged with populating the information. We could not accomplish this on our own. We're continuing, the league is continuing to construct and maintain it, and they offer technical support to us along with our godmothers, Sue, Eleanor, and Crystal. All right, back to you, Sue.
Thanks, Jean. Our participation cannot happen without volunteers. That's you and me. First, we know that a volunteer would not just be given a login and told, go do it. As Jean mentioned, it is a sophisticated piece of software, but it's not difficult. There is much to understand about it, but once you get it figured out, it's not difficult. And the team that we're calling the administrative team of volunteers, they'll help with everything. They'll get races set up and help with getting candidate questions and just help the guidance of the whole thing. So what can you do as volunteers? Well, we as a team develop questions that we ask the candidates. Very important, the number one most important thing is finding email addresses for the candidates. If a person just volunteered to help find email addresses, that's huge. We send invitations to candidates asking them to participate, which includes some follow through. And we keep adding more information when folks do research, when we have any candidate forms, dates to enter, we can send that off. If we have people to help find the information, we can get as much as we can possibly come up with into that application. This year will be city specific. So this is an opportunity for the local leagues to learn the software with a smaller candidate list. That's a great place to begin. That we were drinking from the fire hose when we decided to take on not only all the legislative candidates, but all the county candidates too. Boy, howdy, we did. But working with the city would be a great place to begin. And as I said, there's the administrative team to help. I've already gotten a couple of volunteers from Kootenai County, so that's great. And another now that we can maybe get something going in that area. And all of this is only going to help the voters in the state. So I'm going to send this back to Jean.
If I can unmute. Okay. What did we learn? Well, since I'd only been a member of the league for a week, I learned probably more than anyone else. The one thing is we learned the appreciation from candidates. The candidates were especially in the year of the pandemic, they were worried that they wouldn't connect with their constituents, and they were excited that there was a free way to get their platform out to voters. It was obvious too that we were doing it at the right time. So even though the pandemic was a horrific thing, it actually allowed us to really hit the ground running with Vote 411 and demonstrate what an important product it was, or service it was. Especially in this highly politicized time, the candidates felt comfortable sharing their information with a nonpartisan group. The county clerks, bless them, were also grateful that someone was paying attention to their races and to their hard work. I think that was the most gratifying thing, was talking to the elections officials who were working at the county level, asking them for candidate information, asking for contact information, and who all was on their ballot. So if you want to get to know the county clerks, this is a wonderful way to find that out. I was meeting candidates from places I would have never known. My family's been in Idaho since the 1860s, but I've learned more about today's Idaho than I ever could have learned if I hadn't worked on this. And I had 5 counties, I think there were 5 southeast counties, not the easiest ones, but since I'm from Blackfoot, I'm allowed to say. Phone calls go a long way. They're like magic. It's so unusual to get a phone call. People actually appreciate that. It's for the candidates and for the overworked and underappreciated local election staff. When in doubt, call and leave a message if you don't get somebody right away. The candidates were actually very responsive. I was surprised. More responsive in some areas than in others. In the single party counties, some of the people did not see the advantage of participating in Vote 411 because their platforms, they weren't really competitive races. But we did talk a lot about letting constituents know something about where they stood and what they stood for. So prosecuting attorneys and the sheriff, they got to put down in writing what mattered to them. So even in mostly single party counties, we got some traction. We could work on that, of course. Remember that spam folders will gobble things up. So we're reminding folks that if you send an email to them, that the spam folder is probably where the message has been captured. So reminding them of that is good. Every human being procrastinates, I tell you, but please, this is the do not despair part of my message. If you're not getting action from clerks and candidates, keep encouraging them. Everyone waits until the deadline. Just when you think, I'm miserable at this, I'm terrible at this, in come the responses. The rules of engagement need to be spelled out. There's no such thing as an exception to a rule or a deadline. The deadlines are firm, and outlining the roles of volunteers was key to our success. I knew every step of the way what I was supposed to do. Gosh, if so much of what we did in our daily lives was really spelled out as well as it was with Eleanor and Sue and Crystal at the helm. We cannot allow candidates or volunteers to have exceptions to deadlines or guidelines. None of us had worked with this system except for Eleanor, and we all learned to share and navigate it. I was a newbie, as I said. And actually during the pandemic, I was feeling kind of useless and adrift and kind of sluggish. And I don't think it's hyperbolic for me to say that 411 kind of gave me a purpose when I needed it most. So thanks to the league. Back to you, Sue.
we'll have Eleanor take us on.
Oh, apologies, Eleanor. Back to you.
You're muted, Eleanor.
There, okay. For in the fall of 2021, we hope to get local leagues to do Vote 411 for the city elections where they live, and maybe some of the cities that are nearby also, kind of depending on what your membership is. In the Boise Valley, we probably have members living in 3 or 4 of the cities around here. And we'd like to recruit at least 2 league members in each of those cities to work on Vote 411 with us. And we would provide help. I have to say that my first experience with Vote 411 was in 2018. The Idaho, we in League of Women Voters of Idaho decided that we could just do the congressional races, and I think there was a Senate race, and then we found out through the National League office that the Statesman was doing Vote 411, and that possibly we could work with them and have the legislative candidates for Southwest Idaho included in the in our Vote 411 if I were to contact the candidates. So I worked with the reporter at the Statesman who has actually done the Statesman had used Vote 411 for a number of years, and their staff contacted the candidates through with the Vote 411 software. So so I got training from both the national office and the Statesman reporter that we worked with. And then the National League decided that they were not going to work directly with newspapers anymore, and the Statesman's newspaper group decided to develop their own software like Vote 411. So then we went to the Idaho Press for the 2020 elections and worked with them. And they put the Southwest Idaho candidates on their website and printed them. Anyway, we in order to in order to work with the cities where there are leagues, we need to find out which leagues are interested in working with us on their city elections and which city elections they want to work on, because the National League will then get the whatever database they need for the addresses for those cities in order to have them on included in our Vote 411. Then each league is to develop the questions that would be most relevant for their own cities, and we can work with you on making sure that your questions are properly nonpartisan and not threatening. And Sue and Crystal and I will be happy to work with you, and you'll have our phone numbers and email addresses and whenever you find you need help. One problem that we had with the 2020 elections was that in 2019, the Secretary of State got a hot new deputy deputy secretary of state who has a strong background in computer security, and he persuaded the legislature that the email addresses uh, of candidates should not be made available through the Secretary of State's office. And he also took the phone numbers out of the information that used to be provided through the Secretary of State. So I'm going to go and talk to the Secretary of State and his deputy and the election. I've known Lawrence Denny for a long, long time, and I also know his deputy for the elections division. He's not the one who made the rule about email addresses. Anyway, I'm going to go talk to them later this summer when things free up at the State House, and at least get them to put the phone numbers back in the candidate information database that we used to be able to get to, and ask them to repeal that legislation that early in the next session, to repeal that legislation that made the email addresses unavailable. The press club is also not terribly pleased with that email ruling. So anyway, that's part of my hopes for 2022, and we also hope to get the county commissioner candidates that are in primary contests included in our primary election vote 411, because a lot of the counties are one party counties, and the only contest is in the primary election. So so that's another thing that we're hoping we have enough volunteers to help us with that for vote 411. In June, we're planning to have a Zoom meeting to provide some training so that you can have an idea of how vote 411 really works, and that we can show you that this really is something you could do. And we'll encourage you to promote vote 411 wherever possible, and encourage your local newspapers to participate, either putting it in print if they feel they can print it, or they can get a QR code that allows people to get vote 411 on a cell phone, or they could just put advertise that if people go to vote 411, they can find the information about their candidates. So that's our hopes for 2021 and 2022.
Thanks, Eleanor. So if you think that you'd like to participate, we certainly would be appreciative of that. Or if there's someone else in your league that you think that this might be something they would like to work with. I actually had so much fun with it. It's all the things Jean said about how I was working a lot in Eastern Idaho, and I don't know anything there. Well, you know what? I know a lot more now, and talked to a lot of people, talked to clerks, talked to candidates, and it was pretty fun. But anyway, you can contact me. You can contact Greater Boise Area Mals. That's Crystal will be monitoring that one. And you know, even if you just have some questions, if you're not sure. But it's pretty fun, and we hope that those that are interested will participate. So we'll go ahead and stop
Sue,
that.
Sue, may I ask Kendall to weigh in? She participated in this too. Kendall, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but what did you think?
Oh, I mean, I agree with everything you said, and also Sue. I thought it was really, thought it was really fun. I had a very, very red district, and I enjoyed reaching out actually to the candidates, and I found for the most part they were pretty receptive. I thought the most time-consuming part was actually tracking down phone numbers and emails that were functional. And I Godspeed, Eleanor. I didn't realize that that was legislation, but I guess one of the galling factors for me was the form that candidates have to fill out is much less intrusive than a voter registration card, which is also public record. And so if people put down their phone numbers, that's part of the public record, emails, part of public record, addresses. So I had no idea that was legislation. I thought it was an administrative function, but it's that was the most time consuming part. Once you could actually, kind of talk to a candidate, negotiate with them, you usually talk them into it. But it was that step was tricky. The other thing I would say is that this time, I think I would make a greater effort in reaching out to the political parties and the clerks. And I guess what I'd like to see is Vote 411 become a brand that if you're a candidate, you don't want to find yourself not on 411 because people are going to be going there and looking for information. So I see building this brand over the next years because a lot of people come in from out of state to Idaho. They've come from states that have had printed voter guides, and they get here and they say, how do I even find out about candidates? And I guess the other thing about that is when I worked at the Ada County election office in 2018, 2019, we were really pressed for information. People would call, want to know, how do I find out? Usually there's a voter guide. I don't see a voter guide. So how do I find out about candidates? I think really reaching out, we've really forged a good relationship here in Ada County, and we can count on them to put Vote 411 at each of the stations for the people that are answering the phones. But if we can do that and actually, every county, I think that would be a laudable goal, as long as we, have good coverage of the candidates. But I think I see a lot of, just like everybody has said, I see a lot of potential in this platform. And in a state like Idaho, where the Secretary of State is really hands off when it comes to voter information, I think this is an invaluable tool.
Kendall, you said something that that I want to echo because of voice of experience here. You said you would like to see Vote 411 as the tool that every candidate would say, I need to be on that. Well, as I said in the beginning, the League of Women Voters of Moscow have done a print voter guide for decades. And about 12 years ago, there was a county commissioner candidate who did not send his information in. So when that was published, there was no response from him. So that was in the guide. And every candidate that, his same party people or his friends, because everybody knows everybody, were like, what were you thinking, Gary? What were you thinking? Why didn't you? And he didn't win. Now, was that a factor? I don't know, but you know what? People waited for that voter guide to come out. I mean, that's the way it was here in Latah County. People waited for that voter guide. And I think we can make Vote 411 that same kind of voter guide. I really think we can.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So do we have some questions? Because, we'd really like to help take the mystery out of this. Nancy, why don't you, we're a small group, so why don't you go ahead and just ask your question?
Okay. Well, first, I agree that Vote 411 is a marvelous resource, and thank you all who were so instrumental in developing these recent ones. It's something that I have used myself and referred others to as well. The question I have, Sue, came to me as you were showing how you fill out your address and find out the candidates who are in your district, which is absolutely logical. And so I'm wondering, in this era of conspiracy theories and people's focus on privacy, is there a disclaimer on the 411 website that says we don't track you, we don't follow you, you're not being spied on, kind of thing? Is there a privacy statement ensuring people's privacy when they put their contact information in there?
I can't answer that. Eleanor, do you know? I actually can't answer that. I'd have to go to the website and take a look to see. Do you know,
I don't
Eleanor?
remember, but I would think that it would be useful to have that, and we can certainly. I'll check with the. I'll check with Megan, our national contact, and see if there's something like that. Because boy, we sure have. After watching the legislature and all the wild stories that some of them told, there are probably a bunch of our candidates, well, and also people who will be suspicious that their information is being tracked, and that maybe somebody is collecting. What candidates are they looking at? I mean, they
Right.
can be weird.
Well, and I think just that reassurance will make this more popular. People
Yeah,
feel more
yeah.
comfortable accessing the
Yeah.
site. Thank
Are
you.
you talking about sort of a disclaimer that says
Yes.
we won't sell your information? I think that's very, very important
We don't
in
sell
this
it,
day and age.
and we don't
We don't
track
even
it.
store it.
We don't store it
We
anymore.
don't
Right.
store it or track it or do anything with it.
That's very important. Very, very.
That's a great question, Nancy. We will find out the answer to that one. We'll talk to Megan and find out. Other questions? The page those pages that I showed you that you look at when you log in, that's what the public sees. And when you're working on it, that's not what you're looking at. You have all different kinds. It doesn't look anything like that. But I know that some people haven't ever looked at it or used it. So I wanted to show what the public sees, and that's all information that we populate. Mary, do you have a question?
Well, the website has a privacy policy.
It does. Yeah, you're looking at it right now?
Yeah.
What does it say?
It's pretty typical. Like it does store a cookie on your website and your computer, like every website does. But there's nothing about, other than that, is mainly just typical legal stuff.
Eleanor, I think your point about contacting Megan is a really important one, because we have to make sure that we give people the accurate information. So
Yeah.
we don't want to assume or think we know, but and if the National League is tracking, not storing, but tracking or whatever, I think we need to know that, so we don't give people incorrect information.
Right.
Susan, can I speak for a sec? I don't know how to raise my hand. I was trying.
Okay. Well, Judy, we have Judy. It's actually in the reactions button, but we'll have Judy, and then Linda, I think, has a question. So go
Okay,
ahead.
it says right in the middle of the privacy policy in vote411.org, The league will not rent, trade, sell your email address or phone number with any third party.
Great.
You know, it says a lot more, there's a lot more language, but it says that in italics right in the middle of it.
Thanks, Judy. Linda, you have a question?
Yeah, so this isn't at all on that topic. So I was thinking one thing that could be useful, and I don't know, maybe this is also embedded in there, is where do you go to actually vote for this particular election, you know, because sometimes it's here and sometimes it's there. And I was wondering if that information is included.
Yes. Voting locations is included. There's just, you can have just about anything on there. And last year they had voting locations, you know, where do I vote? And sometimes it would be a link to like in Ada County where there's like lots of places to go and vote. There'd be the link to that tool that the clerk has. And so, but yes, that is information that is on there.
Back on the question about what does the volunteers, what does our interface look like? What was helpful to me when I was trained was being able to actually see where I input the information that the candidates would populate. So we had our questions, and we could see our questions in the space where we were looking. It's like behind the house or back of the house. And then the candidates would populate their answers in under the questions. So we could see whether or not they had done that. And then there was a space to send them reminders. And so I assume, Sue, during the training that we do, that we'll be showing them the behind the house, what our space looks like for the people who are working on gathering email addresses and other contact information, and then making sure that candidates are answering the questions. Correct?
Oh, we will definitely have training for those that volunteer to work on it, without a doubt. There are so many wonderful things that make that software so easy and fun to work with. And everything's connected. Once you get it set up, everything is just, they got all these macros in there that just connect everything. And so when I send out, so we've got Jean's running for county commissioner, and I send her hit the button to send her the invitation. Well, based on who she is, it'll send her own login information, and that login will take her only to her little space that we have set up for Jean, and that's all she will see. Whereas we, as people who are working with it, that have the login for the whole thing, we're going to be able to see all the candidates. But it's just a really, really great tool, and there will be training without a doubt, because we want to get people working on this. It's you know, we have you go to some states, and their leagues have committees that are the size of our entire membership in the state. And so they have people that just work on Vote 411 all the time. That's what they do. Well, we don't quite have that. We have to, you know, work on Vote 411, and we have to work on advocacy, and we have to work on this and that and the other thing. But then again, maybe we don't have so many counties as some of those other ones. But
Hey, Sue, we have a question about time commitment. How much time does it actually take?
Depends how much you want to do. If you just want to say look for email addresses, well, once you locate those email addresses, you're done. If you want to, depending upon how many people are working in this particular one, the city one, depending upon how many people are working on it, I don't know that it would take very much time. And time would be spent. Here's how time is spent. Finding email addresses. Well, once you get it set up and you find your candidates, or you find your candidates because they've thrown their hat in the ring, and that's all in the clerk's office. So you'll have your candidates, you find their email addresses, and I've found that the county email addresses were actually easier to find than the legislators, because the clerks kind of knew these people a little bit more. And of course, we don't use government email addresses like, the legislators' official ones, because the AG office kind of told us that's for official business. So, and they all have personal or campaign email addresses. So once you find the email address, then you invite them to participate. And there's a deadline and everything all in the letter that they get. And as Jean said, they often will go into a spam folder. So you follow up usually with your own email to let them know that that came from the website and to check into the spam. And because that one's going to have their login information, that'll have the hot link for them. So then once they return it, you review it to make sure they're not, being libelous or anything. And if the responses that they give are fine, and almost all of them were the last time, then you publish on it. Then you're done. You're done with that candidate until the day you publish, and that's just a matter of hitting the buttons, and you're published, and that's it. So in a volunteer, I would say, depending upon how much time you want to give, and depending upon how many volunteers. We didn't have a lot of volunteers that did everything that we had done. I was working with, I had like about 20 counties that I worked with. So I put a lot of time in, but I would never want anyone to have that many counties that they were working with. So the time commitment can vary. How much do you want to give? That's kind of the thing. Then we find what jobs might be a small commitment or a larger commitment. Nancy?
Sue, in your experience, have some of the candidates taken exception to what their opponents have said in those statements and asked for a redo or a rebuttal or something? I mean, at what point is it finalized and that's all they can say about it?
Well, we had some that were in the primary, and then they had an opponent in the general. And I think there was a few of them that changed their responses. And I think we probably, on our published date cutoff, that was the end. Because if we had the races, we could publish them early. If we had people had already filled theirs in, we could publish them early. But I think, Eleanor, do you have any more to say on that?
I believe that, last year, after the, or as we got into the late summer, those candidates who had won a primary election and were going to be facing an opponent in the general election, we asked them if they wanted to I think we sent an email to them asking them if they wanted to edit their responses. They were the same questions. And I think we had some additional questions at the general election for issues that had come up over the summer, but I don't remember for sure. I may be confusing with the 2018 experience. But yeah, we did give them, there's a form letter that we could use. Actually, it was a form letter that the National League made a rejection letter but we made it a letter that said, would you like to revise your response at all? We did have one candidate an Ada County Sheriff candidate who didn't answer the questions, and we sent her a letter saying that she needed to answer the questions instead of just talking about what she wanted to talk about.
Nancy,
So,
Nancy,
oh,
what
go
I
ahead.
really liked about this opportunity is that some of these folks, like the sheriffs, the prosecuting attorneys, and the county commissioners in single party counties, they really never have been asked, what's the most pressing question that you have, or most pressing issues in your county, and how would you resolve them, or what are your experiences, and how would they be brought to bear to solve those issues. So actually, besides voter education, it really was candidate education. Opportunity for them to, contemplate what they stood for.
And the thing of it is we can be as flexible as we want. The US League doesn't dictate to us, if we want to let them change it or change an answer or response. We can be as flexible as we want. So it's, if we decide that, no, we don't want to do it, we don't want to let you do it, which we didn't and we wouldn't, because we want their words to be out there for the voters, but we can be as flexible with it as we want to. There's like total flexibility that comes from us. And we had a group of, working in the 2020 election, we had a group of about 12 that worked on this at one degree or another. And we met on Zoom all the time and talked about it. We all worked together. We were a team. There's no question. We were a team.
Sue, one thing, maybe the only complaint I had about Vote 411 is a problem with the branding. And it's vote411.org. And so those of us who knew that didn't think that other people wouldn't know that. And so people say, well, do I dial 411? I tried dialing and I didn't get anything. And I think this is actually a fairly substantial branding issue that needs to be taken up. Like the banner behind you should say vote411.org so they know exactly where to go. The number of people that confused, was a real lesson to me. And I think as we reach out to clerks and to parties and to candidates, I think we have to be really aware that for some of them, this is going to be the first time they're hearing of this platform. And I think we just have to be real crystal clear so there's no confusion.
That's a really good point. And when we were using this background that I put on, it's just because my fancy bookcase for Zoom is at the cleaners, so I had to have something else behind me here. But when we were putting the logos and stuff on social media last year, we were cognizant of that .org on there, and so we thought about that when we were advertising it, and we made sure that, well, because there was some other options that we had, and that is a really important point, though. You're right, because it is new in Idaho.
So did nationals, have they addressed this at the national level? Because we're not the only ones that I'm sure would like to avoid confusion. So what did the nationals say about it?
I don't know. because you know what? When I took off one hat, I put on another one. Like I said, if we could only just work with one thing, you know, it would be great because then you could just keep doing the follow through in the off season. So it's something that will, now that, well, I don't know what's going on with the legislature, but as soon as that's behind, then, you know, we can get focusing on Vote 411, which we will be having our first meeting early, the first organizational meeting early. So we have time because I don't think the candidates file until like August. So
Early September.
early September. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Sue, I think the logo itself is pretty recognizable. So for electronic media, you know, a hyperlink just from any homepage for the League of Women Voters would suffice. But when it shows up in print, I agree that would be confusing to not see the .org.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've come upon our hour. I hope that you have a little insight into Vote 411, and I hope that it will inspire you, or you will share with someone else, or whatever kind of whatever little magic can happen, and we will get some. We'll do it again. We're going to do it again. We'll get those city elections for the cities where we have leagues or we have people that want to work on it. So I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I really appreciate your presence, and I appreciate your attention. And tomorrow night we have our social time, our social hour and a half, which it's going to be fun. I'm telling you right now, it's as good as we can do without being together. So, and I trust everybody got their little party